Hello students, welcome back once again. Let's continue with the chapter We Are Not Afraid to Die If We Can All Be Together. But before we proceed, let's have a quick recap of what we learned in the previous video. Students, in part 2 you learned the narrator's struggle for survival. His boat Wave Walker was hit by a storm and was damaged badly. The narrator made some repairs in the ship. His wife Mary was steering the ship, and the other two crew members, Larry and Herb, were pumping out water. The narrator also tried to get some help by sending mayday calls, but did not get any reply since they were sailing in a remote corner of the world. The narrator realized that with that condition of the boat, since the boat was not strong enough, they would not be able to sail till Australia. So he calculated again and he thought that there were two small islands nearby. One was Isle Amsterdam, which was a French scientific base, and they decided to head towards it. After 36 hours of continuous pumping, the level of water on the ship was now under control and they felt a bit relieved. They also had their first meal after 2 days. Now we will proceed. But our respite was short lived. Respite meaning relief, was only for a very short while. At 4 p.m., black clouds began building up behind us. Within the hour, the wind was back to 40 knots and the seas were getting higher. At 4 p.m. in the evening, black clouds again started forming up in the sky, and within 1 hour, the wind started blowing at the speed of 40 knots, and the waves were also getting higher. The weather continued to deteriorate throughout the night, and by dawn on January 5, our situation was again desperate. The weather continued to deteriorate, continued to worsen throughout the night, and by the morning of January 5, their situation was again really pathetic. It was desperate. The situation was grim. When I went in to comfort the children, John asked, "Daddy, are we going to die?" The narrator, he thought he should go and he should comfort his children, and so he went to the children's cabin where his son John, who is just 6 years old, he could understand the seriousness of the situation and he asked his father, "Are we going to die?" I tried to assure him that we could make it. The narrator gave the assurance that everything will be fine. "But, Daddy," he went on, "we aren't afraid of dying if we can all be together. You and Mummy, Sue and I." See the heroic courage the small boy shows. He gives assurance to his father that he is not afraid to face death. He is not afraid of dying if his whole family, his dad and mom and his sister, they all are together. The boy is so brave and mature and courageous. He is giving assurance to his father that he is not afraid of dying if the whole family is together. I could find no words with which to respond, but I left the children's cabin, determined to fight the sea with everything I had. The narrator was so deeply moved by the words of this little boy that he could not say anything, but when he left the children's cabin, he had decided that he would fight back till his last breath and he would fight back with whatever resources were there with him. To protect the weakened starboard side, I decided to heave to with the undamaged port hull facing the oncoming waves, using an improvised sea anchor of heavy nylon rope and two 22-liter plastic barrels of paraffin. Now the narrator decided to protect the weak starboard side. Starboard side, I already told you, it is the right side of the ship. He decided to take the waves on the undamaged part of the boat, and he made an improvised sea anchor. See, he used his innovative ideas and he made an improvised sea anchor using a nylon rope and two 22-liter barrels of paraffin. That evening Mary and I sat together holding hands as the motion of the ship brought more and more water in through the broken planks. But in spite of trying everything, the condition of the ship was not good. That evening the narrator and his wife they sat holding hands because they were feeling really low and depressed, and they saw that with the movement of the ship more and more water was entering through the broken planks. We both felt the end was very near. Both of them thought that now they would not be able to survive. The end was near. But Wave Walker rode out the storm, and by the morning of January 6th, with the wind easing, I tried to get a reading on the sextant. But Wave Walker, their ship, rode out this storm also, and on the morning of January 6th, the wind eased out, and the narrator tried to get the reading on the sextant. Now, sextant is an instrument which is used for measuring distances and angles of the objects. So he tried to get the reading on the sextant. I worked on wind speeds, changes of course, drift and current in an effort to calculate our position. The narrator, he was trying to understand the speed of the wind, the change of direction, he was trying to understand the current of air and water, and he was trying to know exactly where they were in the ocean at that particular time. The best I could determine was that we were somewhere in 150,000 kilometers of ocean looking for a 65-kilometer wide island. And whatever he could calculate, he thought that they were 150,000 kilometers of ocean and they were looking for an island that was 65 kilometer wide. While I was thinking, Sue, moving painfully, joined me, and while he is making all these calculations, his daughter, who is in pain because of her injuries, joined her father. The left side of her head was now very swollen, and her blackened eyes narrowed to slits. The left side of her head, where she had a bump, now it had swollen badly, and her black eyes, now eyes are black due to the swelling. She could not now open her eyes properly, they were opening in slits. She gave me a card she had made. The little girl had brought a handmade card for her father. She had made a card which she came to give to her father. On the front, she had drawn caricatures of Mary and me with the words, "Here are some funny people. Did they make you laugh?" I laughed a lot as well. On the front of the card, she had drawn caricatures or cartoons of her parents, and she wrote the words, "These are some funny people." Why is she doing this? To bring a smile on her father's face, to lighten the seriousness of the situation. She wrote, "Here are some funny people. Did they make you laugh?" I laughed a lot. And inside was a message, "Oh, how I love you both." Inside, she had expressed her extreme love for her parents. And so, this card is to say thank you and let's hope for the best. She expressed her gratitude to her father. She said thank you and she also wished him all the best. Somehow we had to make it. Now, see the little girl's gesture, in spite of being injured, in spite of being in pain, she is trying to inspire her father, motivate her father by making that card and saying all the best. And the narrator, he was just touched by this gesture of his daughter. I checked and rechecked my calculations. We had lost our main compass, and I was using a spare which had not been corrected for magnetic variation. Now, the narrator is trying again and again, he is checking the calculations. He was using a spare compass because their main compass had been lost, and this one was not exactly very accurate. I made an allowance for this and another estimate of the influence of the westerly currents which flow through this part of the Indian Ocean. He kept in mind all these points, that the compass is not very accurate, and he also kept in mind the influence of the westerly currents that flow in that part of the ocean. And then he said, about 2 p.m. I went on deck and asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degrees. If we were lucky, I told him, with a conviction I did not feel, he could expect to see the island at about 5 p.m. So, after making all the calculations in his mind, at around 2 p.m., the narrator went on deck and he told Larry, his crew member, to steer the ship at a course of 185 degrees. And he said if they were fortunate enough, although he himself was not very confident about this, he said that if they were fortunate, then they might find the island around 5 p.m. in the evening. Then, with a heavy heart, I went below, climbed on my bunk, and amazingly dozed off. And after that, with a sad heart, he went below to his cabin. He climbed on his berth, and surprisingly, he fell asleep. He was tired, and for last few days he was really working hard, so he fell asleep. When I woke, it was 6 p.m. and growing dark. By the time he woke up, it was already past 5. It was 6 p.m. and it was getting dark. I knew we must have missed the island, and with the sail we had left, we couldn't hope to beat back into the westerly winds. And the narrator knew that even if they found the island, they might have missed it, and with the sail left with them, they would not be able to beat the westerly winds that blew in that area. At that moment, a tousled head appeared by my bunk. Can I have a hug? Jonathan asked. Sue was right behind him. At that moment, when he is having these thoughts in his mind, suddenly a tousled head, meaning shabby hair, his son appeared and he asked for a hug to his father, and right behind was his daughter. Why am I getting a hug now? The narrator asked, why are you asking for a hug now? Because you are the best daddy in the whole world and the best captain, my son replied. And the young boy said, because you are the best daddy, because he was a very caring and affectionate father, and also the best captain in the world. Because of his efforts, now they had found the island. No, not today, Joan, I'm afraid. But the narrator was not aware of this, no? So he said, not today. Why, you must be, said Sue in a matter of fact voice. You found the island, and the daughter informed, yes, you are the best captain because we have found the island. What? I shouted. The narrator is so happy, and he shouted, what? It's out there in front of us, they chorused, as big as a battleship. And both the children said, it is out there in front of our eyes, and it is not very big, it is the size of a battleship. I rushed on deck and gazed with relief at the stark outline of Isle Amsterdam. The narrator hurriedly ran to the deck and he looked with relief at the clear outline, stark meaning clear, complete outline of Isle Amsterdam. It was only a bleak piece of volcanic rock with little vegetation, the most beautiful island in the world. Although it was a small island, bleak island, there was not much vegetation or greenery, but to the narrator it appeared to be the most beautiful island in the world. We anchored offshore for the night, and the next morning all 28 inhabitants of the island cheered as they helped us ashore. That night they spent on the ship on board, and the next morning all 28 inhabitants, 28 people who resided on that island, they welcomed them and helped them to come on the island. With land under my feet again, my thoughts were full of Larry and Herbie, cheerful and optimistic under the direst stress, and of Mary, who stayed at the wheel for all those crucial hours. Once they were all safe, the narrator is feeling thankful, he is full of gratitude, and he started thinking about all those moments when Larry and Herb, who remained so positive and cheerful and optimistic under this stressful situation and how he supported and cooperated with him. And then he thought of his wife Mary, who stayed at the wheel for all those crucial hours. She steered the ship in those crucial hours. And most of all, I thought of a 7-year-old girl who did not want us to worry about a head injury, which subsequently took 6 minor operations to remove a recurring blood clot between skin and skull. Then he thought about his little 7-year-old daughter who did not want to bother her father by telling about her injuries, for which she had to undergo 6 minor operations to remove a recurring blood clot. And then he thought of a 6-year-old boy who was not afraid to die. The children, the family, the crew members gave him strength, and because of this optimism, because of their perseverance and hard work and willpower, they could overcome this stressful situation. I hope, children, it is clear. The chapter is over. In my next video, I will discuss the question answers. Thank you.